What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Endless Infection on Void Launch. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Void Launch is the map where we have to shoot down Amon's shuttles. There are 7 waves of shuttles which increase in size, number of prongs and escorts. We cannot let more than 4 shuttles escape, otherwise we lose the game. Enemy units spawn Broodlings and Infested when they die. They also, alongside the Infested, have a chance to carry a disease that spreads to your guys when destroyed. Your guys take damage continuously if it spreads to them and spreads to even more of your guys upon death.
Okay, so we have Joni and Edwin home in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Yeah,
Okay,
good, thanks, man.
awesome. So Joni, how do we rank the commanders this week?
So, for me, this was primarily how do you deal with Black Death and how well do you deal with getting swarmed? Like, what's your crowd control like as a commander? This is not the most complicated of mutations, but I think it's quite an interesting one. I think something that, like, this tier list will probably highlight is that this is one where I think, like, there is a lot to be said for, like, mechanical skill. So I'm really interested to see on this one, like, the differences between how myself and ET rank commanders, given that there's quite a big mechanical, like, skill difference there. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at things this week.
Bit of foreshadowing with that mechanical thing. What do you think, Edwin? What do you think, Edwin Home?
Yeah, it's an interesting week. The combination of Black Death with the enemies popping out after you kill enemies makes things a lot more complicated for a lot of commanders. Like, say, Tychus with his grenade can no longer just grenade the first wave of Black Death guys before they get in range because you use the grenade, and now there's a bunch of infested that are also infected. So you have to be a lot more careful with those kinds of things. Static defense, obviously, really great. Top bars, really great. But it's a rough week for a lot of commanders because of the early game in particular.
Let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur is one of those folks who's going to kind of struggle with the early game a little bit because you rely so heavily on toxic nests a lot of the time, but a toxic nest blows up and then now there's still enemies to deal with. So it's a little tough to rely on those here. You're going to have to stack them and hope that you kill everything with those. Obviously, you can make some roaches and things like that, but Abathur's game plan is basically like survive until you can get to swarm hosts and then you should be fine, but getting to swarm hosts is going to be a pain. I'd say you either want to go Tunneling Horror or Essence Hoarder, because obviously it's nice to have the Brutalisks, but they are going to die, and you're going to lose out on that Essence eventually. But you still might want them just for the early game to help give you that little boost to survive to Swarm Hosts. If you can get there, I think he'll do okay, but it's a bit of a tough spot for him in the early game, so I had him in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, very, very similar thoughts, really. The early game is pretty rough. Potentially worth building, like, a little bit of static at home and then actually just triggering toxic nests manually so that you're not wasting them on like Broodlings or walking infested and stuff. But yeah, very similar sort of 100 biomass stuff out heals Black Death, which is always really useful. The way this mutator operates is you will get like slightly sort of laggy trickles of stuff coming in, and particularly for units like swarm hosts, that can present a problem. But yeah, in general terms, potentially use some spore crawlers for shuttles as well, just to sort of take a job off the hands of your swarm hosts. But yeah, in general terms, exactly the same. I had him in B tier as well.
B tier. All right, unanimous B tier. Let's put Abathur in B tier. Prestige-wise, what do you think? First one or second one?
I think probably either. Like Ultimate Evolutions, you're probably going to want to have them around anyhow this week.
All right, so Abathur goes in B tier. I had a game with Ball Marketing. He played as Abathur first prestige and he just made Ravagers. It was effective. I mean, I had about 10% more kills than him, but it was effective. He just kept raiding Biles and eventually he splashed down most things in the way. I thought it was fine. Not sure if I would call it S tier, but ADV sounds about right. Anyway, let's move on. Alarak, where do we have him?
So Alarak does have a bit of a rough time this week. Like he's got sort of no really easy answer to Black Death that I could see. He does have means of like keeping stuff at bay. Like particularly his destruction wave's pretty useful, etc. But the reality to it is, with the massive units coming at you, like stuff is going to get Black Death this week. I was sort of, looking at like Mass Void Ray, possibly Ascendance as well thrown into the mix, but The reality is you're going to want to make some static just so you've got a bit of a backup and potentially something to keep like trickles of stuff away from your army, basically, and keep your army at a range and use, albeit pretty basic static defense as a bit of a buffer. D to E.
D to E. What do you think, Edmund Home?
Yeah, most of if you're a Protoss commander and you don't have good static defense, then it's a rough week for you because you don't have any real passive healing like a lot of the Zergs, and you don't have repair like a lot of the Terrans, so it's a bit tough. I think, yeah, it's just like cannons, Wrathwalkers, and sentries for him, and because obviously sentries give you more range on the Wrathwalkers, which is nice, and they also can use force field in a pinch. Yeah. But obviously force fields can be broken by any of the numerous amounts of large hybrid they're going to be coming your way. So
yep.
Target those down. The other big problem you get is the shuttles actually will just keep flying over your cannons and then die and then drop infested right on your army that have Black Death potentially. So because obviously they don't aggro and stand there and fight. So that's something to keep in mind with pretty much everyone. If you have units behind your static defense or whatever, like the shuttles become very dangerous all in their own in that way. So I think he's going to be in some trouble, but you know, he can help. If he had a good ally, it's not like he's going to be useless. D tier.
D tier. Okay, both of you guys had Alarak in D tier. Let's put him in D tier. Prestige. Oh, no prestige. D tier is considered bad. Let's move on. Arcturus. Where do we have him?
Arcturus is decent here because he does have Earth Splitters in theory for ground, and he has bunkers for everything else and turrets. The problems you're going to run into is that you can only make so many bunkers before it's SimCity trouble. It's hard to make many non-trooper units here, which are very helpful because it's much harder to keep them from getting Black Death because they can't go inside of buildings.
Yep.
It's basically P3 suicide bombers here, so you hold with the bunkers, and then if you need to, you pop some guys out, have them die and nuke things. So he'll do some good work, but he's not perfect, so I had him in A tier.
A tier. What do you think, Joni?
I actually had him a bit better than that. I basically treated Mensk like a slightly worse Swann on this one, and basically looked at his troopers in terms of the three different like turret types pretty much. So had basically rows of bunkers with flame troopers at front, the sort of standard guns in the middle for a bit more range damage, and then the anti-air at the back in combination with some turrets, and it actually held up really well. The flame troopers, as we'll come on to later, very good against all of the sort of smaller trickles, etc. And then, if you want to build a couple of ESOs, whether it's for crowd control or just using Contaminated Strike, just to split up waves and stuff, then obviously you can behind that. P3 as well, exactly like ET said, you want that self-destruct, but I thought Mensk was like really strong this week. I had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Edmund Home? S tier fine, or are you set on A?
I disagree with S tier because of what Johnny said. I mean, a little bit worse than Swann, who is a little bit worse than Karax, means not S tier for me. I had almost no one in S tier this week just because there's one guy in particular who makes this so trivial compared to everyone else that it didn't feel right having anyone else in the same tier as him. Maybe we can have an argument about Swann or whoever later, but I'd say Mensk. The problem is Mensk, unlike Swann, doesn't have an auto repair on his bunkers, so if you want to get them repaired, you do have to have units outside where they're exposed. Whereas Swann, obviously you can also repair, but he does get the repair drones on any of his turrets, similar to like Karax with the repair beam. Obviously A tier is very good, but there's just some people who are head and shoulders above Mensk in terms of it was just easy compared to him. And I don't know. I'd hesitate to put him in S.
Are you gonna make a case for S tier, Joni, or is A fine?
I mean, the reality is I think Mensk is going to be top of A tier or very near the top of A tier, if anything else. So I'm sort of, it's not one I'm going to die in a ditch over. And it is one of those ones where like this week, whether it's popping people out to repair bunkers or whatever, there are like mechanical demands that don't sort of trivialize the mutation completely. So I'm happy with them in A tier.
I'm just very sad that there's so many possible opportunities to make World War I jokes die in a ditch, Earth Splitters, bunkers. Like, it's trench warfare, guys. We're literally dying in a ditch over here. My Donnie. Anyway, A is fine, so let's put Arcturus in A. Prestige-wise, third one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. D. Oh, wait. Yeah. Dehaka, where do we have him?
Yeah.
Artanis, where do we have him?
Artanis.
Yes.
Yeah, so D's about right for Artanis, I think. He's he is struggling this week. Pretty much for exactly the same reasons we've outlined with Alarak, really. Space Archons are extremely good, particularly sort of staggered drops of them can really help to sort of break up some crowd control. He does at least have sort of, cheap replaceable zealots, etc. Having said all of that, like, he massively lacks long range splash damage, which is a huge issue in terms of the crowd control. You can use Tempest to destroy shuttles. Yes, that's absolutely fine. And dealing with the objectives there is not the end of the world. It's dealing with like the fallout from the objectives that's the problem. So bit of a rough time for Artanis. I had him in D tier.
D tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to try him out. The one thing I think you could maybe do besides Tempests is P1 cannons with a few High Templar behind, because that's big splash damage. And you just make a few High Templar at a time, because you obviously can save up 3 warp charges at a time. You dump all your minerals into cannons, you put all your gas in a High Templar, and you storm the heck out of everything. If I tried that out and I knew it was actually solid, I might put him higher than D, but since I didn't get a chance and it sounds potentially kind of pretty flimsy, there's not a lot of tanking there. Obviously, I have shield overcharge.
Stixbender did that.
I'd say
would that help?
Oh, okay, then I could see all the way up to maybe B tier with that.
Wow.
But let's go. I'd say C then, because I haven't seen it with my own eyes.
How about seeing it with someone else's eyes, which is not possible, by the way. If we had the Kala, maybe. All right. Speaking of the Kala, hey. So what do you think about C tier, Joni?
I wonder how mechanically demanding it would be to sort of succeed in that fashion. I can totally see it. My worry would be like damage out.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, D tier, C tier. Is that strategy I remain unconvinced that strategy is better than anything Alarak can do with basically a very similar combination of stuff with Wrathwalkers, etc. So I would sort of I'd be inclined to think that Artanis is like at a parity with Alarak. I sort of think he's again. I'm not going to quibble too much C or D.
If I can jump in on that, the big difference is like 4 High Templar at a time can stack storms on the ramp in the middle, which is where the biggest, most dangerous armies come through. And at most, you're risking 4 High Templar. In order for Alarak to be effective, he has to have like all of his Wrathwalkers there, and all of his Wrathwalkers have to be at risk, and they're not splash damage. You're risking very little with Artanis at a time.
I think that's why you would put Ascendants on there instead, though.
Ascendants?
Yeah, that would be fine, maybe. But Ascendants rely on powering up over time. The Psionic Orb is not remotely comparable to Psystorm until you power up, and as soon as you power them up, well, now it hurts to lose them. Whereas one High Templar, you use its energy, you morph it into an Archon if it's still alive, you use its energy, and then if it dies, it's probably gotten its value. You don't need like 2 or 3 High Templar and some cannons can storm an entire army and kill it pretty much instantly. So I think people underestimate, especially with P1, how much damage his Psystorms do.
As much damage as they do in 1v1?
Yes,
I wish. Actually, I'm very glad it doesn't. That would hurt.
I'm fine with C. That I can see that. I'm fine with that.
Okay. I guess we're fine with C. Let's put Artanis in C. Prestige wise, third one or first one, so that we can get the
first one by Templar,
super storms.
One if you want to go Tempest.
Oh, you want to go Tempest with Broodlings Infested, my Donnie?
I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you wanted to
if you're
do
a masochist.
Yeah, I was going to say you're certainly not going to mass them anyway. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we're doing first Prestige for Artanis. Let's move on. Dehaka, where do we have him?
Dehaka is a little bit rough of an early game. If you can get to creeper hosts and your pack leaders, then you're sitting pretty. But the early game, it's hard to rely on Dehaka because he's almost certainly going to get sick and die because he's a melee unit. And you don't really have great early game fighting options up until Glevig. And if you have to pop Glevig to fight the second wave or whatever, then you don't necessarily have him for the shuttles. And then things get painful from there. If he can survive the early game, he's going to do really well, but it's the early game is quite annoying with B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, similar thoughts basically. Like, pack leaders are great because obviously they don't really care about Black Death. However, there's sort of average issue on this map, and certainly you need to really ensure with Dehaka that the Broodlings are kept well away from your creeper hosts. So that does present some for the likes of myself some very significant mechanical mechanical issues. I was I experimenting with playing P3 purely so you could pop more than one pack leader at once on this and basically sort of store them for emergencies. Sort of Dehaka was harder to play this than I thought it would be. B tier as well.
B tier. Okay, both of you had him in B tier. Let us put him in B tier. Prestige-wise, second one or third one?
I did second. I think you could do third as well.
All right, let's move on. Fenix, where do we have him?
So Phoenix is better than some of the Protoss commanders that we've already listed. Like having a small ball of champions that's very easy to replace is a nice thing. Having said that, sort of, very similar to I've got him in B tier, and very similar to the two commanders that we've got there already. Like you've basically just got to be very, very careful to make sure the trickles don't get near your stuff. So keeping your shell farm like well away and really, really carefully managing your shell farm so that if stuff does get Black Death, exactly the same as if your mineral line gets affected at all, really sort of wheedling out the infected and putting them in a colony somewhere where they can be infected on their own and not let it spread. So mechanical issues like air output with P2 is not too bad. But yeah, I had Phoenix and B.
B tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, I think the big problem you may have is if it's an air comp, that could be tough, but everything else, it should be fine. You can just keep your shell farm behind a couple cannons. You put a couple cannons at the 3 ramps, and then any trickles of infested and whatnot shouldn't make it anywhere close to your shell farm as long as they're below those. Yeah, he'll do okay, so B tier.
B tier. He'll do fine. He's fine. B tier. Let's put him B tier. Prestige-wise, second one?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Moving on. Han and Horner. Where do we have them?
Han and Horner is a little tough this week because the best anti-air they have are big capital ships that you really probably don't want to be using here because of Black Death. They don't have great, not anti-air, but static in general. All they have is missile turrets, and they're not even very good missile turrets, so that doesn't help. And their army is very small and has a lot of units in it. Like, I assume you'd probably have to go like Reapers here. I didn't get a chance to check it out myself, but normally it'd be battle cruisers, but because of Black Death, it's probably Reapers, but then it's very hard to keep your Reapers managed in terms of getting ones that have Black Death away before everyone gets infected and dies. So not great. Bombing platforms also can't hit air, so not great, but they can hit the waves, so there's that at least. So I had them in C tier.
C tier. What do you think, Joni?
I was less optimistic about them, although I have it's turned for my revenge after last week because I have remembered that they have Hellbats and Hellions this week, which are extremely useful for controlling the sort of Broodlings and the infested and stuff. So they I think are necessary this week. However, yeah, exactly as ET said, like their turrets are very useful but absolutely bang average basically. Wraiths are pretty useful for taking out shuttles, I think, and just keeping them cloaked, getting them out of there, etc. Protecting your galleons is an absolute nightmare. You've got to keep them right at the back and just keep ferrying units forward. So like super like mechanically intensive to play Han and Horner. I actually had them in D tier.
What do you think about D tier, Edwin?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Well, if you're okay with D tier, let's put Han and Horner in D tier. No prestige recommendation for D tier. It's considered bad. Let's move on to someone who is not D tier. Karax. Where do we have him?
So, life for Karax is not particularly challenging this week. He's basically got all the tools that you'd ever want to deal with this. Having static building instantly is incredibly helpful because you can just get stuff dealt with immediately. You've got plenty of ability to do area damage with your top bar if it becomes an issue. Personally, I played P1 because I think his Chrono Wave basically gives you a sort of get out of jail free card if you start getting swarmed at all with any like mass broodlings and infested. But the reality is I can totally see how P3 would provide you a similar sort of ability to get out of jail free basically. So yeah, but I mean Karax like absolutely solid S tier. Just build static and don't look back.
What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, spoiler alert, this is as good as it gets for this week. I also used P1, I think it is, the Cannon Prestige. P3, maybe there's an argument it's better, but if I can use P1, I'm going to use P1 because Chrono Wave is one of the funnest things in the game. People with bad CPUs, beware. The frame drops I had when I popped Chrono Wave once or twice were extensive as hundreds of infested poured out. But if your computer can survive it, then you're going to have a very, very, very easy time as Karax this week. So S tier.
S tier. Unanimous S tier. Prestige-wise, first or third, right?
Yeah, I think we probably both played first, but I can see how third would play.
All right, that's fine. Let us move on. Kerrigan, where do we have him?
Kerrigan is another somewhat rough one this week. She can use Omega Worms to avoid the damage and then transfuse with Queens, but then from there it's like, well, what army do you make? Mutalisks, Black Death is pretty dangerous against, and Ultralisks, it's not the best because they can't hit air. And Kerrigan herself, if she's constantly taking damage from Black Death, can be a little tough. Obviously, she gets the Carapace generation, which helps in the straight up fight, but she's still slowly dying in the background from it. So any prolonged fights, she's just going to bleed out and die generally. But she's not completely useless. Immobilization Wave is always good, never bad. And you can go just Hydralists or something like that and slowly replace them as they die, and you'll do something. So they're not terrible, but they're not going to be carrying or anything. So I had them in C tier.
C tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, very similar. Sort of P1 is an option on this because Malignant Creep allows Hydralisks to not out heal, but break even when they're Black Death, which can be very useful.
Pretty neat.
It's still going to be pretty rough though. Like, I think Immobilization Wave is actually a really difficult one. Like, that can open a bit of a can of worms on this map if you use it amongst the wrong combination, because you can basically unleash a torrent of disaster on yourself by accident. So I think careful usage of Immobilization Wave, and there's a few other sort of like top bar style stuff, which with other commanders as well, which you sort of need to just use a little bit carefully this week so as not to like bring down a world of hurt on yourself. D tier for me.
C tier. What do you think, Edmund Home?
D tier.
D tier. Are you gonna make a case for C tier, Joni, or is D tier fine?
I think we both said C tier, didn't we?
I was going to say, I think we both said C.
Oh, C. Okay. All right. Let's put Kerrigan in C tier. Prestige wise. What?
First one.
First
Yeah.
one?
You can do Omega Worms to keep Kerrigan alive, but the extra Malignant Creep, like Johnny said, I kind of forgot about that for some reason. But yeah, Mass Hydra with just barely staying alive is good enough.
You can even have lurkers to make sure the Broodlings and Infested never reach you. Just put them behind stack defense or something. That'll work out. That'll work out fine. What could possibly go wrong? Let's move on. Nova, where do we have him?
Yeah, so Nova's another one. I mean, who is basically like she's got some decent tools, but they're just incredibly mechanically intensive to use this week because you're constantly having to shift between pulling libs in and out of sort of shuttle range to deal with that. I was using tanks to mop up anything that sort of might trickle, and then Nova herself like basically bouncing around and sort of trying to deal with anything that slid through all of that. Her pay to play regeneration is extremely helpful this week if, like me, you muck it up a couple of times. But in general terms, yeah, Nova has a pretty rough time this week. I was playing P1. I had her in C tier.
D tier. What do you think, Edmund Home?
Yeah, I mean, the main problem is anti-air again. So if you get an air comp and there's Black Death, it's a nasty combo for Nova. Obviously, for the Broodlings and everything, the Ravens turrets, and then also you can just build those turrets with your SCVs, do splash damage, and they are pretty good for dealing with Infested and things like that. So that helps to make sure that trickles don't get through, just having one or two of those at each ramp. Mass Raven is probably what you're going to want to go with, and just lay out turrets in front, and then snipes and seeker missiles for air units, and maybe some Goliaths in there or something like that. I don't know, but it's not easy for sure. So yeah, I had her in C tier.
C tier. Okay, both of you had him in C tier. Let's put Nova in C tier. Prestige wise. First one, you want the shotgun for the Infested.
Yeah,
enemies, right?
You need the shotgun for this.
All right. First prestige then. Let's move on. Raynor, where do we have him?
Raynor is, it's like Swann is slightly worse Karax, Minsk is slightly worse Swann, and Raynor is slightly worse Minsk. So I had him in B tier. He does have bunkers, he does have missile turrets, he does have repair, but his top bars are not B for bunkers. He doesn't have as good of a top bar, like as reliably available of a top bar as Minsk or Swann or Karax in that order, basically, as they get better and better, I should say. So, build lots of static defense. In theory, you can do medics. I wouldn't do medics, but at least not many of them. And maybe some spider mines out in front of the bunkers to help deal with the initial waves and things. You're really just worried about your bunkers getting cracked by like hybrid behemoths or whatever they're called. And if you can survive those, then spider mines, you put spider mines out front of the bunkers, they deal with those, and then you should be pretty good. So I had him in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Exactly the same. Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly like ET said. Don't build medics. If you've got bio, it needs to be in bunkers. Do that. Build loads of missile turrets and basically just keep muling at home. Keep your eco up so that you can replace whatever you lose, basically. But yeah, I had Raynor in B tier as well.
Yeah. Actually, if you keep healing at home, maybe you could just build a wall of bunkers. Even if they don't kill anything, they'll just be in front of the enemy long enough for the guys behind, the bunkers and the turrets behind, to actually shoot down the shuttles. Like, fill the whole entire center space with bunkers and command centers and other fun stuff to just block the enemy.
That is basically exactly how I did it. Was pretty much kind of like outbuild stuff.
Yeah. Just outbuild Amon. Let's put Raynor in B tier. Any prestige is fine, right? Even you need mules, so not the first one.
Yeah, don't play P1.
And you don't need more expensive guys, so not the third one either.
I play P0. I think 0 works very well.
All right, let's move on. Stet Boy, where do we have him?
So Stet Boy plays pretty normally. Like Super Gary obviously has the issue that Green Zone doesn't completely outheal Black Death for Super Gary, unless you're popping both overcharges at the same time. Having said that, he's got loads of tools to deal with this map. He's extremely good on this map. Corruptors, Hydras, Lings to deal with ground stuff, etc. And you effectively play pretty normally. Having said that, it's not free at all, and you do need to make sure that stuff is being sort of administrated properly. I had Stetmann somewhere between A and B.
Somewhere between A and B. Okay. What do you think, Edwin Home?
Yeah, I had him between A and S. I think the healing zone's obviously very nice. You're probably going Hydralists or Corruptors with Lings, depending on the composition, more Lings or even Ultralisks than Corruptors, or more Corruptors if it's air. Egorb's very good against this because it just kills everything and then also instantly kills the infested that pop out. And heal zone's good. Just make sure you're managing Gary. Try to keep him alive as long as possible. Be popping those overcharges on the Steadalites and you'll do pretty well. So I was waiting for Johnny to convince me to put him in S, but since he's A to B, I guess we'll go A.
Yeah, somewhere between S and B, if only there were a letter for that. Prestige recommendation, second one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Stukov, where do we have him?
Stukov, the early game in this is a little bit tough for him, but it's not horrible. It really just depends on the unit comp. Like, if you get Zealots rolling up to your door, it can be kind of tough to deal with those with just Broodlings, but if it's just Marines or Zerglings or something like that, it shouldn't be too bad. If you can survive the early game and get a couple bunkers out, then suddenly the game's free. So I had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Joni?
Interesting. I had him in A tier, and that is mainly because it is harder than normal and takes longer than normal as well to get to the point where the game is free. I think I certainly personally found that early ramp to be quite difficult to deal with, basically. So I suspect we were playing exactly the same strategy, which is P3 and just click. But yeah, I just found it harder to get there, and this is sort of what I alluded to at the beginning. This kind of thing where I think that a mechanical deficit between players will highlight with some commanders, and I think Stukov's a really good example of it. How easy they are. So I had him in A tier. I didn't think he was as good as Menx, actually. So yeah, I had him in A tier.
Okay. What do you think, Edwin Home, about A tier?
So I could see A tier. The reason I had him in S is because I did actually play against a Zealot first comp, which I would imagine, except maybe Vultures, is the hardest situation, and I still did it first try. So I'm like, well, pretty much any other comp is going to be much easier than this. So if I was able to do it first try, it shouldn't be too bad, right? I think A tier is fine because, again, I could almost just see it being Karax and only Karax in S because it was so much easier as Karax than it was as anyone else. It's kind of crazy. So I'm fine with A tier.
Okay, Stukov in A tier. Prestige-wise, third one or first one? Third one. Okay, let's move on.
Definitely.
Swann, where do we have him?
Right, so I'm about to disagree with what ET's just said. I actually found Swann easier than Karax on this one. Just make static and win, basically. Now, I will concede that there is... I play quite a lot of Swann, so actually for all of my failings with most commanders, I'm like not too bad with Swann. And what you do need to be careful of is making your static defense in the right order, and really kind of managing it carefully in terms of knowing like the wave timings, the shuttle timings, in order that you've got the right stuff up for the right job at the right time. Having said that, like P2 makes life very, very easy indeed. The only other thing that you do need to do, which I did, and learned from my mistake on my first go with Swann, is do not use concentrated beam until you've got a decent amount of static up, because you will empty out one of the enemy's bases and then get absolutely mauled by broodlings and infested. But having for all of my intellectual failings at dealing with it, I found Swann very easy. I think P2 S tier.
You heard it here first, guys. Don't use the concentrated beam right away unless you like fun. What do you think, Edwin?
So here's why I had a harder time with Swann than Karax, is my guess. It was first try with both of them, but Swann, I got a Tempest composition, which outranges your missile turrets. Karax doesn't care about that like at all, because he just has an observer, and Kadaran monoliths outrange Tempest, and top bars outrange Tempest. Whereas Swann, it's like, well, I have to pop a top bar now, I guess, or something like that if I have that available. It's a lot more of a pain with those kinds of outranging your missile turrets. I wish P2 outranged Tempest with missile turrets, but it doesn't seem like they do. So that would be my argument for him being worse. I think S tier is fine. I'm okay with S tier because he is every other comp. I'm sure he would be ridiculously simple with. I just got like the one.
Can you just fly a factory to give vision to the Tempests?
You can. Missile turrets don't hit them though. Am I crazy?
The laser can.
It can, but that's slow. They're going to chunk through a lot of your turrets in that time, unless you're P1, which I probably wouldn't do because you want the better. That's true, but it's money. Whereas Karax, I mean, you just have an observer sieged over each of your areas, or not even an observer. I'm just saying if there's high ground vision you're having to worry about, because that can be a thing here. Kadaran monoliths just AFK deal with Tempests, whereas Swann,
that's true.
You have to actually do some things to deal with Tempest. Again, I'm fine with S. I do think Karax is better than Swann because of that one specific thing. I think they're both going to have an easy time with like every other composition of the game. It's just Swann specifically is going to have more trouble with that than Karax. Not that he can't deal with it. I did. I won. I want everyone to know that I won, but it is more of a pain than it would be as Karax, you know. So, but yeah, I'm fine with S tier.
All right, let's. I guess it's the Animus S tier then. Let's put Swann in S tier. Prestige wise, second one, right?
Yeah. I think all P1. I think P1 is pretty viable. Like slowing down the shuttles and everything else is pretty nice. I reckon P2 is probably better.
Let's move on. Tychus, where do we have him?
Tychus is having a little bit of a rough time this week. I would say you want to go non-P2 here. P3 or P0 really. Probably P0 because Odin Nuke is very nice. And you just go Rattlesnake, get his upgrade, and then you aren't dying to the Black Death anymore. But just the rest of the mission, there's so many little units, it takes up so much of your time. And again, the whole thing with Tychus's grenade, it can't kill the units and then also kill the broodlings that spawn from them in one hit. So you do still have to deal with any broodlings and whatnot. So it's a lot more painful than others. So I had him in B tier. He's not bad, but he's definitely a lot more of a pain than a lot of the rest.
What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, similar. In fact, same tier, but or slightly different strategy, I should say. Yeah, certainly don't play P2 unless you just hate fun. But getting like Nikara or Rattlesnake out first is pretty important. And then Blaze was like MVP this week. You know, that crowd control that he enables was just super useful. I actually played P3 on this because I like having the Odin down a lot, and I found that this was another instance where using Big Red Button could just get you like swarmed and in a lot of trouble. Whereas having the Odin but not having Big Red Button, and that
steady splash,
you had this just a big tanky thing with splash damage that could absorb a load of damage, sort of as and when basically. So,
a load of what, Joni? A load of what?
Just a load of pain. Whenever you unleash hurt on yourself, the Odin just deals with it. But I had Tychus in B tier as well.
Oh, okay. Unanimous B tier then. Prestige wise, you guys say third one or first
third
one?
or none.
I played three. I think basically probably all of them except two.
Anyone except the second prestige. All right, that's a understanding at least, common understanding. Vorazun, where do we have him?
So Vorazun has Vorazun problems this week. But like lots of them. It's sort of, this is like her worst nightmare in terms of Black Death. It is fundamentally like an air-based solution to the mission as well. So like you need all of the standard stuff that Vorazun normally needs when dealing with Black Death, like a backup nexus in the middle of the map somewhere, so that you're not going to lose your entire mineral line to like stray like DTs sort of respawning and then dying immediately there. Her top bar is really useful. Obviously, any free and disposable units are a good thing. So her top bar is really useful. Using time stop in conjunction with Corsairs to deal with like the shuttle waves and stuff is pretty much the way to go. You're gonna want some static as well. Having said that, like none of this is easy. I didn't come anywhere near to getting this done myself with Vorazun, so I had her in E tier.
E tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, this is pain week if you're Vorazun. Shadow Fury and the splash damage that you have there is not going to be enough to clear out the units and then also clear out the infested. So you're going to get Black Death, and you already have a tough time keeping enough units around as Vorazun. Very gas expensive army, so you don't want to be losing units as Vorazun, and that's basically unavoidable here. So I had her in E tier as well.
All right, unanimous E tier. She should be glad that we didn't put her in F tier, because she does have that F tier aspect of making life worse just by existing. But we were gracious enough not to put her in F tier. Be thankful, Vorazun. You're not F tier. Let's move on. Zagara, where do we have him?
Zagara, you're basically just unit management. Don't send in everything all at once. Lots of Banelings, lots of Scourge, and you hope you don't run out of steam. You're going P1 here, I'd say. And if you do that and you manage your units well and you don't get everyone Black Deathed all at once, it shouldn't be too bad. So I did have her in B tier just because Infested popping out does waste your Banelings potentially, but you should have enough to at least do a lot of the work as long as you have any kind of ally, which is what B tier kind of signifies to me. So that's where I had her.
All right. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I actually had her in A tier, basically as sort of reverse Stukov. Like, she deals with the early game really easily, but then is prone to running out of steam in the late game. This is sort of basically, yeah, as ET said, like P1, exploding units are good. I had her in A tier, but only because her like late game Zagara is very much the consideration of hopefully your ally will do something. But I can totally see her being in B tier as well. So I, again, not gonna quibble too much over that one. So either or for me.
I was so disappointed. Neither of you mentioned bio launchers. You can camp the shuttle exits by just putting bio launchers on the expansion and the ramp. You don't have to worry about actually fighting the shuttles. You can save so much gas on Scourge by just putting down bio launchers in range of the shuttle exits, and they'll just bomb away. You don't have to worry about the main objective, and your entire units, your entire army can just be used to fight waves, and most of them are free. Anyway, I guess. What did you guys put him? B tier?
We hadn't decided yet, but I'm fine with A tier.
Oh, A tier.
Yes, I get like sort of I think the bile launcher point does slightly strengthen her position on that front. So yeah, I mean, I said A to B anyway. So if ET's happy with that,
Okay, let's put Zagara in A tier. Better than Raynor. Better than Tychus. My Donnie. Let's move on. Zeratul, where do we have him?
Yeah, better than Raynor and Tychus and Zagara. Like, cannons are good.
Yeah.
As we know, his monoliths are exceptional for this. And you've also got some really like the Legion, certainly the Telbrus Legion and the Demote Dude are both excellent crowd control. Like the Demote Dude, if you do get sort of in problems at all, can literally just stop the sort of critter waves completely dead. Zeratul S tier for me. Like, cannons good.
Cannons are good. What do you think, Edwin Home?
I didn't have him in S tier purely because of the early game before cannons are good. The first couple waves, trying to deal with those with Zeratul while also getting your artifacts without like losing him. I don't know. I think it depends on if you get vultures or something as the first wave, trying to deal with those with like cannons or stalkers, and then you lose all of them, and then they get Black Deathed, and then you don't have anything, and then you rebuild for the second wave, the same amount of units, and then you lose those. I don't know. I think it's definitely like Karax and Swann, zero problems with any of the waves at any point in the game. Zeratul, it can be trouble in the early game. So I'd say probably A tier purely because of that. If you survive the first 2 waves in the shuttle just fine, you don't lose too much, you'll be great. But like Karax and Swann, there's no risk of that happening. You're never going to lose to the first waves as long as you play reasonably competently. Zeratul, a lot of things can go wrong very quickly in the early game. So I would say A tier, but I'd be curious to hear what Johnny thinks about that.
Yeah, what do you think about
So I
that,
think
Johnny?
I completely made peace with the fact that Zeratul was going to die. I think that may be the difference between
He
us.
already died in
I
the campaign. Don't worry, it already happened.
Exactly. Technically, this is just a break for him anyway, so it's fine. No, I kind of exactly like ET said. I basically just assumed that he was going to get Black Death and die early on, but managed to keep him alive like just for long enough to get those cannons up, pretty much. And that was the extent of my strategy. Was basically making sure that initial battery of like 8 cannons in front of the sort of middle shuttle thingy. Get those cannons and the monolith up, and then at that point you're off to the races, because then you can keep Zeratul at the back just for artifact collection for the rest of the game, basically. That was my sole strategy of basically throwing absolutely everything into getting those cannons up. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, and I did lose some to start with, and it took a few goes. But once I had it figured out, yeah, I can see why he's not the same as Karax and Swann, to be fair. Like, yeah, I'm not going to lose much sleep over it. Karax and Swann are much better, so I'm happy to have him at the top of A tier.
All right.
If ET is rated by S. So.
All right, so Zeratul ends up in A tier. For the first wave, what did I do for the first wave? I used Telebrust Legion so that I don't have to worry about the first wave being a problem. Actually, I was actually allied with Ball Market. He was trying to show off how awesome Ravagers, where he had a lot of toxic nests, and then he lost a Spore Crawler, and then a bunch of Broodlings and Infested walked and used up all the toxic nests. I was like, are you sure you still have the first wave? It was like, that's when I used the Telebrust. I was totally just chilling on the base, just macroing up. I was pulling a bit of money then, because I was using probes to expand. I was using the newly produced probes to attack the expansion rocks, so I had a lot of money banked up. Yeah. That's why I could afford Telebrust Legion. But if you're making units, that might not be an option. So I'm not sure if that'll work for anyone else or for any other strategy. But it did work for me, so hooray. Anyway, yeah, A tier, I guess. Prestige-wise, second one?
2.
Yeah, because we want cannons. Yep. They are good. All right, do we have a double S?
I'm going to say no. I think that Karax and Swann are more similar than ET does. So I'm intrigued to see whether he thinks Karax is double S.
Nah, I don't think so. Because again, double S is like what mutation? I don't think it's what mutation necessarily. There's still considerations to make and adjustments, like, So
you still have to think.
I would say just S.
All right, who's top of S tier?
I would say Karax.
See, I would say Swann, but
another big point. Swann's stuff heals to full on its own, or Karax's stuff heals to full on its own. Swann's heals to half HP on its own, so you have to be actually repairing, which, I mean, you can do. And technically, I mean, your SCVs, I will say, don't mind being Black Death, because it's free repair, and they just sit there repairing themselves. Yeah. And you can keep building with them and everything like that. So there is that. I don't know. I found that Karax was way easier, and I do think Tempests are going to be, like, there's a couple comps that are way more annoying for Swann than they are for Karax. There's no comp here where I'm like, man, that would be annoying to play against as Karax. It's like, no, they're all really easy. Whereas Swann, there's a couple that are a little bit more annoying.
I found that Flaming Betties make it so, like, they do almost trivialize this mutation more than anything else. And so if Tempests is the only thing that you have to worry about, like, you can figure that out. So I mean, look, they're both great. They're both S tier. Like, I'm not going to sort of quibble too much over it. I personally had a slightly easier time with Swann, but at the same time, as we say, I think this is a mutate that really does highlight, like, different play styles, different mechanical capabilities, etc. So yeah, both of them are S tier. So happy with that.
Okay,
let's go Swann at the top. How often do you see Swann above Karax, really? Right? So.
Well, it happened.
Oh no, no! Don't do that. Not the pity. I won't take the pity play for Swann.
It's not pity more than it's
just consistency. He was also top of S tier last time.
Oh, well, there you go.
Can you guess who was the second one in S tier last time?
Karax again?
I don't know. Karax, yeah.
No, not even close.
What was last week's? Rest in Peace?
No, not last week. Last time this mutation rolled around.
I see.
Okay.
Minsk.
Yes, he was second in S tier, and he was S tier last time. I think it's because the bunkers have splash, and you can upgrade them to have more armor and more range, and you can compact them. You can compact them as tightly as you would cannons, and they don't need energy. You can replace them very quickly, even literally just dropping them out of the sky. They come with 6 guys. They can all shoot, and if you
I could see an argument for S tier. I think they had to be
no,
smoking
no, no,
something
no,
to
no,
put
no,
them
no.
above Karax.
This is your tier list. I'm just giving the reasons
saying, in
why.
hindsight, like, I'm just saying, like, we debated S tier a little bit with Minsk. I get that, but putting him above Karax seems like you're on crack to me. I got to be honest.
Karax wasn't
That
even
seems-
A plus tier last time this rolled around. Can you believe that? There were
that doesn't make any
4
sense to me at all.
last time this rolled. There were 4 commanders. Tutu and Stixbender have adjudicated that there are 4 commanders above Karax last time. Shocking. I do agree his character is really easy, but he was only A tier, and yes, 4 guys above him. Kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, well, look how far we've come, folks. You know, big improvements.
It's the
Big
evolution of the
improvements.
game.
All right.
More people sign up to be tier list commentators. Soon, Han and Horner will be top of S.
Let's hope that will be more interesting. I don't even care if they put Todd and Horner at the top of S. I just want to hear the justifications. That's why we do these
I
things,
want to watch that replay.
right? Yeah. Anyway, so who's top of A?
I mean,
I believe we said
I am gonna
Zeratul.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to advocate for Minsk, actually. I think for exactly as CTG has just said, like, that's exactly how I played Minsk for this.
That's fine.
And yeah, but I do think, I think personally Minsk and Zeratul are, like, distinct from the other 3 commanders here as well. But yeah, so they're my 2 for sort of top of A, but maybe Stukov as well.
Yeah, I think Stukov's on par with Zeratul in a lot of ways. It's make it past the early game. It's pretty free, at least in my experience. Yeah, I think Minsk, Zeratul, Stukov in that order is probably good, and then Stetmann I think is better than Zagara maybe.
Very consistent.
Yeah.
Yes, this looks
Yeah,
very
I think you're
consistent.
probably right, yeah.
With, well, not exactly. It's a little rearranged, but these are the same top 6 as last time, which is very nice. It's very nice to see. It vindicates that good players know how good commanders are. There's no disagreement on playstyle, who's top of where, but the same top 6. Well done, guys. Give yourselves a round of a round of cheeseburgers. What are you clapping for? I'm hungry.
I don't have any cheeseburgers nearby.
Yeah, I was going to say,
very sad.
I am hungry now. Yeah.
Okay. Who's top of B tier? This is A tier, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
finished A tier. I
Okay,
think top
who's
of B tier is
Top
Raynor.
of B, Raynor.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good shout, actually. I'd probably have Tychus is pretty high up there, too, from my money.
Yeah, I'd say second place is Tychus, and then Abathur, and then Dehaka, then Fenix, probably. Yeah.
All right.
Do you think I was thinking maybe Dehaka over Abathur only because, like, Abathur to me plays kind of like Dehaka but without Dehaka.
That's fair because you don't really have a panic button like you do with just like I need a pack
Yeah.
leader. So yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
we can
yeah,
put
yeah,
Dehaka up on Abathur.
All right. Who's top of C?
I'd say probably Artanis.
Artanis is the blondest.
Yep, of the 3. I think that order there probably that works for me at least.
Kerrigan is
I'm
blonder
pretty
than Nova
happy
this
about
time. So who's top of D tier?
Barely, very, very close.
Very barely.
I think Alarak is better than Han and Horner.
Yes. And Vorazun ends up being the only A tier. Actually, last time.
Vorazun's lucky she's not a tier lower.
Actually, last time, Hara and Horner was the lowest. Lower than Vorazun and Alarak, who are the next 2 lowest.
Didn't you say Stickspender was one of the 2 people last time?
Yes.
Yeah, well that explains it. So we're good.
Why? Is he a known hater of Vorazun? I thought, or rather...
No, he likes
well,
Vorazun.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
only
yeah.
reason,
He
yeah.
argued Vorazun above. Okay, that makes sense. All right. That's why. There we go, guys. Okay, so hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it also, please leave it in a comment. I will see you guys next time. Oh wait, there's one thing. I almost forgot. I forgot this for the past few weeks, but there's one more thing. There are a lot of commanders who are B tier and lower, and only 2 commanders in S tier. So we'll have to do this. It's been a long time since we did this. Are there combinations of commanders B tier and lower who would be better than Karax on his own?
Zagara or no B tier or lower.
B tier or lower.
That makes it harder.
Abathur and
Abathur and
Raynor?
Raynor, something like that.
something like
Raynor
that.
can
Yeah,
bump early
yes,
game,
someone-
and then Abathur gets to mass swarm host and
Kerrigan and
But
Raynor
again, like-
with Malignant Creep, with Pew and Malignant Creep, maybe the bio cannot heal COVID.
Yeah, actually, Kerrigan does with Malignant Creep. That's like really significant
Right?
buffing.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Like, yeah, I
It's
wonder,
fun.
yeah.
It definitely feels like you're at more risk of like storms or things like that than you are as a
True.
mass cannon, you know?
You are at more risk. So
I
yeah,
suppose, yeah, like
It's
Raynor
not-
with an Abathur or Dehaka, just anything to protect those swarm hosts would be pretty efficient as well, I think.
but is it better
Yeah,
than
Raynor
Karax on his
anchor
own?
and
That's the
I don't
question.
think so. I don't know.
I don't think it's, I mean,
So no combination of any of these. But how about Dehaka and Raynor? Dehaka can just have the creeper hosts launch their creepers in peace behind walls of bunkers. That'll mean that they never get infected.
We're assuming like the Karax player has the same skill level as the
Yeah.
other two players individually have. Then yeah, I'd say Dehaka Raynor's probably able to put in more work. Like you could probably pretty easily clear the map. With
Yeah, you can go on
those two
offense,
by the
actually.
end of the game.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
it's
Whereas
similarly,
Karax, like you maybe could, but it would be annoying.
It would be.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I think that would.
Tychus Raynor, the Tychus player could give the Raynor player time to basically get completely set up, and then that might work. But
That might work.
yes, S tier this week is like I think significantly easier than anyone else really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Raynor Dehaka as a pair is better than Swann or Karax would be.
Actually, Dehaka. I'm thinking Dehaka can pair well with a lot of the Dehaka or Tychus can pair well with a lot of these commanders who are low. But if you can put a body in between the infested and, for example, Alarak's army, just make sure that Alarak's army never gets infected. That could be pretty good. But is it better than Karax on his own? That is the real question. Probably.
I don't know. I'd say Raynor Dehaka definitely is. I'm not sure about the rest, just because you have the bunkers to make sure that nothing ever gets to your creeper host. The creeper host can deal with the big waves and whatnot. Pack leaders can deal with the big waves. So it would be very, very, very easy for like a competent Raynor, competent Dehaka to run the whole map, I'd say.
All right, there it is.